A paralyzed tech mogul sits in silence in his mansion garden, sensing that something isn't right, until a fearless young homeless boy looks him in the eye and says, "I know what she's doing to you." That moment shatters everything. What follows is a storm of betrayal, stolen fortune, and a nephew's chilling plot to erase him completely. But he didn't count on the boy or the truth. This real-life story will leave you questioning everything about family and greed. So tell me, where in the world are you watching from? And is it morning or night where you are right now? Chen turned his head toward the voice, though his body, locked and unresponsive below the neck, could only grasp the profound helplessness surrounding him. The Rosewood estate garden hummed with the ordinary sounds of a California afternoon. Rustling eucalyptus trees, the distant splash of the infinity pool, the faint buzz of lawn equipment. His fingers couldn't move. His legs hadn't worked in 3 years. But his mind was sharp, painfully sharp, and lately it had been screaming warnings his voice couldn't speak. The voice, young, male, came from behind the hedge maze. But what startled him most was not the sound. It was the timing. The boy had waited. He must have been watching for weeks. Only after Victor's nephew, Derek, had wheeled him to the stone bench and walked away to take his important business call, did the boy approach. Quiet, cautious, as if this opportunity were dangerous. "What did you say?" Victor asked, his voice the only part of him that still obeyed. "I said I know what she's doing to you," the boy repeated. "Your nephew's girlfriend. The one who gives you the injections." Victor's breath caught. "What are you talking about?" The boy stepped around the hedge, maybe 12 years old, wearing clothes 3 sizes too big, shoes held together with duct tape. "I live in the toolshed behind the tennis courts. Been there 2 months. Nobody checks back there anymore." Victor's heart hammered. "You're living on my property?" "Yes, sir." No apology. Just fact. "I see everything. I hear everything. And what I've been hearing." The boy's voice dropped. "She's not giving you medicine. She's giving you something else. Something to keep you weak." The world tilted. "Why would she?" "Because Derek's gonna inherit everything when you die," the boy said simply. "But you're not dying fast enough. So they're helping." Victor's chest constricted. 3 years ago, a diving accident had severed his spinal cord. 3 years of depending on others. 3 years of Derek moving in to help manage things. 3 years of Natalie, Derek's girlfriend, becoming his full-time nurse. 3 years of slowly losing everything. "I don't know who you are or why." "My name's Carlos," the boy said. "And I'm telling you because nobody else will. Because rich people like you. You think your money protects you. But I've been watching. And I know what poison looks like." Derek's voice carried across the garden. "Uncle Victor. Time for your afternoon session." Carlos disappeared behind the hedges like smoke. Victor sat frozen, not by paralysis this time, but by a truth he'd felt in his bones for months but had been too afraid to believe. Chen didn't sleep. He lay in his hospital bed in the master suite, surrounded by equipment that kept him alive but reminded him daily of what he'd lost. The diving accident had been ruled just that, an accident. He'd been at his Malibu beach house, celebrating the successful IPO of his cybersecurity company, Vector Shield. One moment of showing off, one bad dive, one terrible crack, and his life had changed forever. Derek, his sister's son, had appeared within hours. Grieving. Supportive. Offering to handle everything while Victor recovered. Except Victor hadn't recovered. And Derek had never left. Natalie had come 6 months later. Pretty. Professional. With immaculate references as a private nurse specializing in spinal injury care. She'd moved into the guest house and taken over Victor's care with ruthless efficiency. The staff had been gradually let go. "Cost-cutting measures," Derek explained. "We need to be smart about expenses during your recovery." Now only 3 people remained. Derek, Natalie, and a groundskeeper named Miguel who came twice a week. And apparently Carlos, hiding in the toolshed. Victor's eyes tracked to the 4 stand beside his bed. The morphine drip. The vitamin injections Natalie gave him every morning. The medications that kept him comfortable but increasingly foggy. Something to keep you weak. The boy's words echoed. At dawn, Natalie entered with her usual bright smile and medical tray. "Good morning, Victor. Time for your vitamins." Victor watched her prepare the syringe with new eyes. Her movements were practiced, confident, quick. "Natalie," he said slowly, "what exactly is in that injection?" She didn't miss a beat. "Your B12 complex, vitamin D, and the anti-inflammatory your doctor prescribed. Same as always." "Which doctor?" "Dr. Morrison. You remember." Her smile stayed perfect. Victor didn't remember. His memory had gotten increasingly spotty over the past year. "Convenient. I'd like a copy of my current medication list," he said. "Of course. I'll print one right after your injection." She approached with the needle. For the first time in months, Victor said, "No." Natalie's smile flickered. "I'm sorry. Not today. I'm feeling nauseous. I'll take it later." Her eyes narrowed for just a fraction of a second. Then the smile returned, wider. "Victor, you know we need to stay on schedule. Your regimen is very specific." "Later." A pause. Then she set the syringe down with careful precision. "All right. I'll check back in an hour." She left, and Victor heard her voice in the hallway. Low, tense, speaking to Derek. He had 2 hours, maybe less, before they'd force the issue. Derek wheeled Victor out to the garden at the usual time, phone pressed to his ear, voice animated about market opportunities and strategic pivots. Victor waited until Derek's footsteps faded toward the pool house. "Carlos," he called softly, rustling from the oleander bushes. The boy appeared, wary as a stray cat. "You came back," Carlos said. "I didn't take the injection this morning." Carlos's eyes widened. "Good. That's good. How do you know what they're doing?" The boy sat on the grass in front of Victor's wheelchair, cross-legged and careful. "Because I watched my mom die the same way. Different drugs, same method. Her boyfriend wanted her social security checks. Kept her sedated, kept her weak, kept telling everyone she was just depressed." Victor's throat tightened. "I'm sorry." "Don't be sorry. Be smart." Carlos pulled something from his pocket, a small digital camera, the kind from a decade ago. "I've been taking pictures. Through windows mostly. Natalie doesn't close the curtains in the medical supply room." He turned the camera screen toward Victor. Photos of medication bottles. Labels visible. None of them matched what Natalie had claimed. Diazepam. Lorazepam. Haloperidol. Sedatives. Antipsychotics. Drugs that would cloud his mind, suppress his will, make him appear increasingly incapacitated. "She's keeping you compliant," Carlos said. "And Derek's been forging your signature on documents. I've seen him practicing in his office. He leaves the window open when he smokes." Victor felt cold despite the California sun. "For how long?" "Year and a half, maybe. That's when I started noticing." "Why didn't you tell someone?" Carlos laughed, bitter and old for his age. "Tell who?" "The police. I'm a homeless kid living in your shed. They'd arrest me, not investigate you. Social workers. They'd put me back in the system, and Derek would just make sure you had an accident before anyone asked questions." "So why tell me?" The boy met his eyes. "Because you deserve to know. And because if I don't help you, I'm just like everyone else who watched my mom die and did nothing." Derek's voice carried across the garden. "Uncle Victor. Natalie says you missed your morning injection." Carlos vanished. But this time, he left the camera in Victor's lap, tucked under the wheelchair blanket. That night, Victor lay awake, mind clearer than it had been in months. The fog was lifting. Without the sedatives, his thoughts sharpened like knives. He couldn't move, couldn't walk, couldn't even feed himself. But he could think, and he could talk, and apparently he had an ally. The next morning, when Natalie appeared with her tray, Victor smiled. I'm sorry about yesterday. You're right, I need to stay on schedule. Her relief was palpable. Of course. We all have off days. He took the injection without protest. But he'd seen Carlos slip into the room while she prepared it. Seen him photograph the vial labels with his ancient camera before disappearing again like a ghost. Evidence. They needed evidence. Over the next week, Victor played the role perfectly. The compliant patient. The declining billionaire. The man slowly giving up. He signed what Derek put in front of him. After Carlos had photographed each document through the study window. He took Natalie's injections. After Carlos had documented each vial. He listened to Derek's phone calls about liquidating assets and maximizing the estate, while Carlos recorded from his hiding spot in the ventilation shaft. The boy was everywhere. Invisible. Observing. Just like Victor had been, trapped in his body, watching his life be stolen. But now they were watching back. 2 weeks after their first conversation, Carlos brought someone new. Victor Chen. The woman's voice was sharp, professional. My name is Detective Sarah Reeves. I'm with Financial Crimes Division, but I'm here off the books. Victor's breath caught. How? Your young friend is very persistent. He showed up at the station 3 times before I agreed to look at his evidence. I thought he was a con artist or delusional. She held up Carlos's camera. He's neither. She sat on the bench beside his wheelchair, tablet in hand. I've been investigating your nephew for 6 months on an unrelated fraud case. But what your friend has documented here, this is attempted murder, elder abuse, and embezzlement. Can you prove it? With your cooperation. Yes. She leaned forward. But I need you to be strong. They're going to realize you're sharper than you've been acting. They'll escalate. Meaning they might try to finish what they started. An overdose. A tragic accident. A man in your condition. It would be so easy to explain. Victor glanced at Carlos, who stood by the hedge, thin and fierce and determined. What do you need from me? Detective Reeves smiled. Keep taking their injections. We'll swap them out. Saline instead of sedatives. Act like you're getting worse, but start documenting everything. A small camera in your room. Audio recordings. And we need to catch them in the act, discussing the plan, admitting what they've done. How long? 2 weeks. Maybe 3. Victor's hands trembled against the wheelchair arms. And if they figure it out before then? Then Carlos will trigger the panic button I'm giving him, and we come in hot. She stood. Can you do this? Victor looked at the boy who had risked everything to tell him the truth. The homeless kid who could have ignored it all, could have disappeared, could have saved himself. Yes, Victor said. I can do this. Detective Reeves nodded. Then let's take your life back. The next 3 weeks were the longest of Victor's life. He played his role. The deteriorating patient. The confused uncle. The man barely clinging to awareness. But beneath the performance, he was more alert than he'd been in years. Detective Reeves' tech team had installed microscopic cameras throughout the estate. Carlos, risking everything, had planted audio devices in Derek's office, Natalie's room, and the medical supply closet. The evidence accumulated. Derek on phone. Once he signs the final transfer, we're clear. Then we just let nature take its course. Natalie in the supply room. I'm increasing the haloperidol. He's getting too alert. We need him more docile for the estate lawyer visit. Derek and Natalie together. 3 years is long enough. After the papers are signed, we accelerate the timeline. Each conversation recorded. Each document photographed. Each injection documented. But the strain was showing. Your nephew's getting nervous, Detective Reeves told Victor during one of Carlos's covert report sessions. He's talking about moving up the timeline. About having you sign a new will this weekend. Let him, Victor said. I'll sign whatever he wants. Victor. I'll sign it. You'll have it on camera. And then you'll have everything you need. Saturday morning arrived with terrible clarity. Derek wheeled Victor into the study. Sunshine streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows, the Pacific Ocean glittering beyond. A lawyer Victor had never met sat at the desk with documents spread before him. "Uncle Victor," Derek said, voice warm with false concern. "Mr. Patterson is here to finalize your estate planning. Just a few signatures, then you can rest." Natalie stood by the door, syringe ready. "Just in case you need something for anxiety." Victor looked at the papers. At Derek's eager face. At Natalie's cold eyes. At Carlos, barely visible through the window, thumb on the panic button Detective Reeves had given him. "Of course," Victor said softly. "I trust you, Derek. You've taken such good care of me." Derek's smile widened. "You have no idea how much that means to me." "Oh, I think I do." Something in Victor's tone made Derek pause. "You've taken care of everything," Victor continued, voice strengthening. "My money. My company. My health. You've been so thorough, Uncle Victor." "The injections, for instance. Diazepam, lorazepam, haloperidol. Very thorough." The room went still. Natalie's hand moved toward the syringe. "I wouldn't," Victor said calmly. The study doors burst open. Detective Reeves entered with 6 officers. Guns drawn. "Derek Chen, Natalie Morrison, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, elder abuse, fraud, and embezzlement." Derek's face went white. "You can't prove. 3 weeks of recorded conversations say otherwise." Reeves held up her phone. "Including the one from this morning where you discussed making it look like natural causes." Carlos slipped into the room, camera in hand, that ancient digital camera that had documented everything. Derek's eyes found the boy. Rage twisted his features. You little hero," Detective Reeves corrected. "That's what he is." Victor Chen sat in his wheelchair, still paralyzed, still dependent, but now surrounded by people he'd carefully chosen. Real nurses. A physical therapist. A team that saw him as a person, not a paycheck. Carlos sat beside him on the renovated toolshed porch. Not a shed anymore, a proper guest cottage with heat, running water, and a room that belonged to the boy who'd saved Victor's life. "Judge sentenced them this morning," Victor said. "Derek got 15 years. Natalie got 12. Mr. Patterson lost his law license." Carlos nodded, not celebrating, just acknowledging. "I've been thinking," Victor continued, "about what comes next." "You're not dying anytime soon," Carlos said with certainty. "No. But I've been dying in a different way. Trapped. Helpless. Isolated." Victor turned his wheelchair to face the boy. "I want to start something. A foundation. For people who are vulnerable. Elderly, disabled, isolated. People who need advocates. Like a watchdog. Exactly like that. We'll call it." He paused. "What should we call it?" Carlos thought for a moment. "The Whisper Project. Because sometimes the truth comes from the people nobody's listening to." Victor smiled. "The Whisper Project. I like it." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun set over the Pacific. "Carlos," Victor said quietly, "thank you. For seeing me when I was invisible." The boy shrugged. "You were never invisible. You were just alone. Now you're not." The Whisper Project launched 6 months later. A nonprofit dedicated to protecting vulnerable adults from financial abuse and medical neglect. Carlos became its youngest board member, using his experience to train others to recognize the signs. Victor never regained the use of his body, but he regained everything else: his company, his fortune, his autonomy, his voice. And more importantly, he gained a family. Not blood but chosen. The boy from the toolshed. The detective who believed him. The team they built together. Derek appealed his sentence from prison. It was denied. Natalie claimed she'd been manipulated. The jury didn't buy it. Mr. Patterson lost everything. And Victor Chen, the paralyzed tech mogul who'd almost been erased, became one of the most powerful advocates for elder protection in California. All because a homeless boy whispered truth when everyone else stayed silent. The end. If this story moved you, remember, you don't need money or power to make a difference. Sometimes you just need to pay attention and speak up when everyone else looks away. Where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments. Like if this story touched your heart. Subscribe for more stories about ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Share with someone who needs to remember their voice matters. Until next time, stay vigilant, stay compassionate, and never stop believing that one person can change everything.